In today's video, just like the title says, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 players of all time in the NBA that have never won an NBA championship. The last all-time ranking video I did on the channel was my all-time top 10 duos, and about half a year ago, when I was starting out my channel, I made a series of my top 10 from each position of all time. But this video in particular is going to be really fun to make because there's a lot of ringless legends out there, and I think in general, a list of guys that haven't won rings and appreciating their play despite them not being able to get the ultimate goal done of winning a championship. I think it's good that we appreciate their greatness because most of the reasons that they weren't able to win the championship was because of their supporting cast and how they weren't good enough. So we got to appreciate these players, and in today's video, just like I mentioned, I'll be ranking them in the top 10 list. So let's get right into it. So let me start off with some honorable mentions that just missed out on the list. We got Tracy McGrady, who, just like I said with my small forwards list, would definitely be on the list if it wasn't for injuries. He was an amazing scorer, but injuries obviously did cut his career short, very unfortunately. We've got George Gervin, who also was an amazing scorer in his prime, but just missed out on the list because he didn't have as good a career as the guys that I put on the top 10. We've got Russell Westbrook, who just misses out. By the end of his career, he could be in the top 10 of this list, but right now, he's actually had a lot of championship caliber teams that he's actually sometimes hurt in the playoffs just because of his really inefficient scoring. So I decided to leave him off the list despite his amazing accomplishments in his career. We've got Carmelo Anthony, who just doesn't have enough other attributes to his game other than his dominant scoring to be ahead of some of the other guys on this list. And then we have Grant Hill, kind of a similar situation with Tracy McGrady here. He had tons of potential, but unfortunately injuries did cut his career short, and he just misses out on the list as well. Kicking out the list now, at number 10, I've got Reggie Miller. And Reggie Miller is one of those guys who came very, very close to winning a championship, kind of multiple times throughout his career. I mean, he made the conference finals a lot of times, specifically in the late 90s with the Indiana Pacers, specifically in that 1998 season when they lost in a heartbreaking Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Final to the Chicago Bulls. And then ultimately, Reggie Miller did lead the Pacers to an NBA Finals in 2000, but unfortunately they lost to the dominant Kobe and Shaq-led Lakers. And throughout Reggie Miller's career, he was really efficient and a pretty dominant scorer at times, especially when he was the main option on his team. Obviously a great shooter, shooting about 40% from 3 throughout his career on around 5 attempts per game. And I think if there was a situation where he could be put in as a second or third option on a team, that would absolutely be a championship caliber team. But unfortunately he was pretty much always the best option on his team and still led his team to the finals in 2000, which is an amazing accomplishment. And really the main reason that he's making this list over some of the honorable mentions was of course his amazing efficiency, shooting 47% from the field throughout his career, like I mentioned, 40% from 3 and 89% from the line, one of the best free throw shooters we've ever seen, and overall a 61.5% true shooting percentage throughout his career, which is also very efficient. He always did what was best for his team on the offensive side of the floor, especially when it came to scoring, and it's unfortunate that he never won a championship. He was definitely a championship caliber player. At number 9 on the list, I've got Patrick Ewing. Ewing's another one of those players who came close multiple times, led his team to the finals in 1994 with obviously the New York Knicks, and also in 1999 when he was more of a role player on that team. They still made the finals and were very close. He came close both of these times in 94 and 99, but ultimately didn't win a championship, but obviously was still a very good and dominant player throughout his career. Definitely has the case to be a top 30 player of all time, and really just your classic traditional dominant big man. He averaged 22 points per game throughout his career, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, made the all-defensive second team 3 times throughout his career, at times was a very valuable rim protector on the defensive end of the floor, was dominant in the post, consistently used bully ball to always get his buckets around the rim, and shot 50% from the field throughout his career. He had a great career as a dominant traditional type of center, but unfortunately never got that ring. Number 8 on the list, I've got Jon Stockton. We know what Stockton's known for, his incredible passing, arguably the greatest passer of all time, averaged 10.5 assists over the course of his career, and led the league in assists per game 9 times throughout his career. He also led the league in steals 2 seasons throughout his career, and made the all-defensive second team 5 times throughout his career, was obviously a really good perimeter defender, did great work on that end of the floor for his Utah Jazz team, and was obviously really efficient as well. He only averaged 13 points per game throughout his career, and the fact that he was never able to take that scoring to the next level hurts his ranking a little bit here, but he still shot an astounding 52% from the field throughout his career, which doesn't seem that good, but as a point guard, that's obviously absolutely insane. And then 38% from 3 as well, and an effective field goal percentage of around 55%. So Stockton was very efficient, an amazing playmaker and passer, and great on the defensive end of the floor on the perimeter. The fact that he never won a championship really hurts his legacy a little bit more than pretty much everyone else on this list, because he was a point guard that was supposed to be that really championship caliber player, and ultimately he was playing with Karl Malone too, who is also on this list, and you'll see where he is a little bit later on in the video. But the fact that they had this duo and a decent supporting cast as well and weren't able to win a championship kind of hurts their legacy and ranking. But it was still against the Chicago Bulls, the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen led Chicago Bulls in 97 and 98, so we'll cut them some slack. And obviously we still have to appreciate just how great Jon Stockton was. Really the only thing that hurts his ranking here, aside from the fact that he never won a ring, just like all of these guys, is how he never took that scoring to an elite level, but he was still one of the best passers we've ever seen, an amazing perimeter defender, and very efficient, and he absolutely deserves at least a top 8 spot on this list and on the point guard list. At number 7 on the list, we've got Steve Nash. In my opinion, Steve Nash is pretty much exactly like Jon Stockton, but just a little bit better. His efficiency is obviously insane, and that's really what he's known for throughout his career, shooting 49% from the field throughout his career, 42% from 3, 90% from the line, 56% effective field goal percentage, and 60% true shooting over the course of his entire career. This is just insane efficiency, and because of this and the fact that Nash is also one of the greatest passers and overall playmakers that we've ever seen, he was able to win 2 MVPs throughout his career, and this and the fact that he really never had a supporting cast good enough to even make the NBA Finals means that he's slightly above Jon Stockton on this list for me and the point guards list. Steve Nash absolutely has a very good case of being a top 30 player of all time, with his amazing efficiency, his elite passing, averaging almost 9 assists per game throughout his career, and leading the NBA in assists for 5 seasons. Also that incredible free throw shooting, one of the greatest free throw shooters of all time, obviously insanely efficient, and the fact that he won 2 MVPs just completely adds on to his resume and gives him a big resume booster there. So for me, he's definitely at least 7th on the list. At number 6 on the list, I've got Chris Paul. Now, luckily for Chris Paul, he's going to find himself way out of this list in maybe a few weeks. In my opinion, the Phoenix Suns are absolutely going to win this NBA championship in 2021. And in my recent video, one of my recent videos I made about a week ago, I talked about what winning a ring would mean for Chris Paul's legacy and his all-time ranking. And I talked about my all-time point guard list in that video as well. So be sure to check out that video. Now, the reason I'm ranking Chris Paul slightly over Steve Nash and Jon Stockton is mostly because of his scoring ability, how he's not exactly as efficient as these guys, but has averaged 18 points per game throughout his career, absolutely dominant in the pick and roll and in the mid-range area, shooting around 48% from mid-range throughout his career, on pretty high volume too. We all know if you watch Chris Paul, he loves to operate in that mid-range area. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter too, shooting 37% from the 3-point line throughout his career. Like I mentioned, 18 points per game, which is a lot higher than the other point guards I mentioned in Nash and Stockton, and obviously also one of the greatest passers. And honestly, I think Chris Paul might be the greatest playmaker of all time. Not exactly the greatest passer, but I think he could be the greatest playmaker of all time. In terms of passing, he is 5th in all-time total assists and 3rd in assists per game, with around 9.5 assists per game throughout his career. He obviously has an incredible impact on his team. Whichever team he goes to, they're going to get instantly better once he's on that team, and obviously amazing leadership, especially we're seeing later in his career, amazing leadership with younger players, especially like Devin Booker and all the other role players on the Phoenix Suns, and he was amazing defensively too. He's made the all-defensive first team 7 times and the all-defensive second team 2 times, so the fact that he's a slightly better scorer and defender than the other guys, and ultimately is going to probably win a ring this season and get himself off this list, is why I rank him slightly above Nash and Stockton here. Kicking off the top 5 now, at number 5, I've got James Harden. He's starting to make his way up his list as more and more of us realize that James Harden's one of, if not the very best scorer that we've ever seen in the entire NBA. Obviously, that playstyle that he had with the Houston Rockets with isolation and step backs and creating his own shot a ton showed us just how of amazing scorer he is. But what hurts his ranking definitely is the fact that he's on this list and he hasn't won a championship yet, and really how he's had supporting casts that have been able to possibly win a championship, but his one-dimensional play style kind of hurts his team a little bit. And we've seen this year he's taking on a different role with the Brooklyn Nets and averaged 11 assists this year. And ultimately, if they keep this team together, I think we will see James Harden ultimately win a ring with this Brooklyn Nets super team we got here. But ultimately, throughout his career, he's averaged 25 points per game and 6.5 assists per game on pretty decent efficiency, shooting 44% from the field. For a guy with that play style where he's creating his own shots, stepping back, 3-level score, that's obviously very elite. And overall, James Harden is just one of the best scorers we've ever seen and has to make the top 5 here. At number 4, I've got Allen Iverson, another player that never had a supporting cast good enough to actually be able to win an NBA championship, but the fact that he was still able to lead a pretty bad team that was surrounding him in 2001 all the way to the NBA Finals and still win a game and drop 50 points against the Los Angeles Lakers in 2001 is just absolutely insane. And I'm smiling behind the camera here because that run was just absolutely insane. I watched a documentary about it or something, and really just Allen Iverson, the fact that he was able to lead his team to a championship and not win it but still lead his team to the NBA Finals does definitely help his ranking here. The fact that he was able to win an MVP that year as well, and the fact that he's averaged 27 points per game throughout his career. Again, not great efficiency, only shooting 43% from the field and 31% from 3, but he was one of the greatest ball handlers that we've ever seen, if not the greatest ball handler and dribbler we've ever seen. Obviously created his own shot a ton and one of the best volume scorers we've ever seen. And just because of this, his slightly higher volume scoring and the fact that he is a winning player enough to lead his team all the way to the NBA Finals is why I still rank him slightly over James Harden. By the end of Harden's career, he'll probably be over Iverson on a list like this, but right now I'm still going to go with AI. At number 3 on the list, I've got Elgin Baylor. And Elgin Baylor is an all-time legend that a lot of people forget about. And of course, before I start talking about him here, rest in peace to Elgin Baylor. He recently passed away, I believe, about a month ago. So of course, rest in peace to him. He is easily a Hall of Famer and absolutely an all-time legend that not a lot of people know about, but for the people that do, I hope we never forget about him. He was an amazing talent, and in terms of what he did on the court, throughout his career, despite playing in the 70s, which obviously wasn't the very tough era, but he still dominated and averaged 27.5 points per game and 13 rebounds per game. Some of it isn't as credited as it should be because he did play in the 70s, but a lot of people forget about Elgin. I definitely think he's still top 3 on this list due to his absolute dominance in that time, and he actually led his team to the finals. He was playing for the Lakers his entire career, and he led his team to the finals 8 times. So the fact that he's actually on this list and hasn't won a ring is really unfortunate, but you can look at this 2 ways. You could say, oh well, he's 0-8 in the finals, or you could say that he led his team to the finals 8 times. It's a lot better to make the finals than get eliminated before the finals. It's like I said with the LeBron situation, you can't look at it as a 4-6 record. You got to look at it as 10 finals appearances. Same thing with Elgin Baylor here. He made the finals 8 times. That has to help his all-time legacy and all-time ranking, and the fact that he was just dominant scoring the basketball and on the boards also helps his case a lot, and I think he's definitely top 3 on this list. At number 2 on the list, I've got Charles Barkley. I know that the top 2 players on this list, Charles Barkley and the guy I have at 1, do get a lot of slack, especially because they are on this list and haven't won a ring throughout their career, but Charles did win the MVP in 1993, was absolutely dominant in the prime of his career there, led his team to the finals that year despite having not the greatest supporting cast, and obviously the fact that he didn't win a ring definitely hurts his legacy. I mean, if you watch TNT, you know that Charles always gets flamed by Shaq and Ernie and Kenny because he hasn't won a ring throughout his career. career, but he still does know what winning feels like. He's obviously a winning player. He averaged 22 points per game, 11 rebounds throughout his career on a very efficient 54% from the field, and was also pretty good overall defensively. He's an absolutely dominant player. He's definitely has a case to be a top 20 player of all time, and just because of his dominance on both ends of the floor, he has to be in the top 2 of this list. At number 1 on the list, I've got Karl Malone. Now, just like I said in my all-time top 10 power forwards video, where I ranked him as the second best power forward of all time, we are putting Karl Malone's personal life aside for this ranking, just talking about him on the court. I personally think that he's a top 15 player of all time. He doesn't get a lot of recognition from fans around the NBA right now. Some people don't even have them in their top 20, but for a guy that's the second all-time leading scorer, he definitely gets a lot of underrating, and a lot of people don't have them even in their top 20, like I mentioned, and that's pretty far back for a guy that's the second leading scorer of all time with over 36,000 points in his career. He averaged 25 points per game throughout his career on an efficient 52% from the field, 58% true shooting, and consistently delivered down the stretch in the clutch. That's obviously why they called him the mailman. He always delivered. He was dominant in the post, in the pick and roll with Jon Stockton, and was absolutely lethal around the rim. And overall, his scoring ability alone pretty much gets him the top spot on this list and a top 2 spot on the power forwards list for me. He also made the all-defensive first team 4 times throughout his career, averaged 10 rebounds and 4 assists for his career as well. A pretty good overall player with dominant scoring, and I think he's the best player of all time still to this day who has not won a ring. So there you have it. That is the end of today's video. This video took a lot longer to record than I expected. I'm already at 16 minutes here, but if you made it to the end of the video, you're an absolute legend. Thank you guys for sticking around if you're still here. Probably not a lot of you are, but if you are, thank you. And if you made it to the end of the video, comment down below E, just a lowercase e, so I can know that you made it to the end of the video. You're an absolute legend if you made it here. Now, if you're new to the channel or you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any new videos. I'm posting lots of NBA content right now, so hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching this video. Comment down below your thoughts on my list, and I'll see you all in the next video.